Another day, another Strat, but this one is just a little bit different. What's going on, my friends? I'm Sean Pierce Johnson, and welcome back to another episode of Year of the Strat. In this installment, we are going to be taking a look at a very cool twist on the Stratocaster theme in the Noventa Series Stratocaster from Fender. Now, for those of you in need of a Spanish lesson, I'll give you one right now. Noventa is Spanish for 90. Gee, I wonder why they'd call it the 90 series. Well, maybe it's because all the guitars in the Noventa series have P90 pickups. Talk about a little bit of an odd twist on the theme, but one that ends up being a really awesome twist and something really cool to see that Fender has done and not a builder that's just building an S-style guitar. We're gonna take a listen to it, obviously, but first, let's get down to the specs and see how this is both a familiar and different guitar all at the same time. Talking of tone woods for the body and the neck, Fender hasn't veered too far from what makes a good Stratocaster a good Stratocaster. Alder body with a maple neck. However, they've chosen to top the neck with a P90 fingerboard. Now, some of you may remember several years back when the sights regulations came out and it became harder to acquire rosewood and they were looking for more sustainable alternatives. Fender elected to use P90. Many other builders did as well. And it's cool to see that the wood is still alive and kicking in the guitar realm, and as soon as the sights regulations made it easier to use rosewood, they didn't just abandon it entirely. I do think that it matches up really well with this crimson red transparent finish that they have chosen to give this particular model, which has a distinctively other S guitar kind of vibe to it. I'm talking about SGs. The headstock is equipped with vintage style tuners, a very interesting choice because vintage style tuners, although I like them, aren't necessarily something that players around the world love and are wanting to deal with. But I think that it definitely is a cool nod to the past with this very interesting twist on the Stratocaster theme. Now, as I alluded to earlier, the P90 pickups are really the hallmark of the Noventa series. Fender has elected to design brand new P90 single coil pickups for this series. Now, there are three models. In the Stratocaster, we have a bridge position P90 and a neck position P90 with a three-way toggle switch, master volume, and master tone, and the classic Stratocaster output jack. These pickups sound fantastic. They have all the great qualities of P90 pickups that I love, but they're still very clear. They've still got some glass to them. Definitely a Fender twist on a P90. Now, you might be looking at this and saying, well, Sean, there's one more thing you're not mentioning. I know, and I'm mentioning it right now. This is a hardtail Stratocaster with a string-through body, 6 bent steel saddles. It's classic hardtail. Yes, you do have the 4-bolt neck joint, which is a little blocky, but quite frankly, we're getting a marriage of a classic Stratocaster with a very different twist on its electronics. All in all, this feels like a really crazy amalgamation of new ideas that Fender wants to introduce into their guitar line, and they're doing it on a model that's actually, despite its limited nature, not terribly expensive. These retail around $1,000 US. And you might even be able to find ones cheaper if you do your searching. But they are made in the Mexico factory, so that helps save you a little bit of money. And in my experience, Mexican-made Fenders are perfectly fine. As a matter of fact, for years I had a made in Mexico Strat and was very happy with it. And then the Am Pro 2 came along, and now I'm in love with that. Rounding out all the specs, the neck has a modern C shape, which is a little bit slimmer at the nut and then works its way to a flatter C shape at the 12th fret. 21 medium jumbo frets, and it's, what can I say? It's classic Stratocaster with a twist. So let's finally hear this thing. Let's start with the clean tones, and I'm gonna play some full voice chords, maybe some triads and some arpeggiated patterns so you can really hear what these pickups can do. And we're just gonna keep it with a little bit of reverb, no extra effects. Now let's do the same thing with a crunchy sound from the Orange Rocker Verb 100. Now, I personally think that Fender did an incredible job on making these pickups. They have a great balance of glassiness and clarity, but that extra little bit of mid-range, that muscularity, if you will, just makes these pickups a lot more versatile than just your standard Fender single coil pickup. I definitely would love to see a Noventa Stratocaster with 3 of them for those who don't really like the offset style guitar, because the Noventa Jazzmaster exists and it has 3 of them. Yeah, I just really would love to hear 3 of these in that arrangement and see what we can get with that. Now that the basics are out of the way, let's have some real fun, bringing in tons of different pedals to create all these different combinations that I really feel showcase how great the Noventa Stratocaster sounds. everyone, is our look at the Noventa Series Stratocaster. Now, if you're like me and over the years you're kind of like, Strats are great, but it would be really cool to see something different in a Stratocaster. This is different. It's not a dual humbucker Strat, which we've seen time and time again from Fender and also not from Fender. It plays really well and it sounds really, really cool. This is one of my first intimate experiences with a hardtail Strat, and I really feel like it contributes to this sort of spanky sponginess that I get from these P90 pickups. There's something in this sound that almost feels like I have a slight squashy compression on it that just really helps evoke a certain style of playing with specific pedal and amp pairings. The neck is incredibly comfortable. It's actually 0.8 millimeters thinner than the American Pro 2 Strat that I love so much. And I honestly kind of like the neck shape on this one a little bit better than the Am Pro 2. Just that it's a little bit more narrow. I can really get my thumb around it without, like killing one of my thumb knuckles. It's just very comfortable to play. The fretwork on this neck is much better than any other made in Mexico Strat I've played in a long time. They're not as rolled as the American Pro 2 Strat, but there aren't any sharp edges cutting the skin of your fingers, and none of the high strings are getting caught underneath them at the edge of the fretboard, so that's a big, big plus for me. I only have a couple gripes with the Noventa series that I feel should have been addressed before these guitars went out to market. The biggest one for me is the orientation of the volume and the tone knob. Now, I do love that there is only one volume and one tone on this guitar, but one of the things that was so weird when I got it is that when I have the volume and tone knob turned all the way up, I haven't ripped these off and rearranged them, they're kind of focused, turned all the way up at like 6 or 7, and on the American Pro 2, when you turn it all the way up, the number 10 is directly facing you. It's a small little thing that I feel like the less you have to do with a guitar right out of the box, the better. And then the last thing is literally the smallest, most insignificant thing, but definitely an upgrade that I always think to make whenever I have a guitar with them on. The headstock has one of these bent steel string trees. I don't know if you guys have encountered this yourselves, but every Stratocaster I've ever had with these particular string trees, almost always when I go to a new set of strings or change the gauge of strings or whatever, it's really weird how it tends to try to grab onto the plain strings. Maybe that's just because of age and the metal starts wearing away. You get that nickel rubbing up against whatever material that string tree is made out of. I can just kind of, it's like fingernails on a chalkboard. And so I always end up wanting to replace the string tree. I personally am loving having the Noventa Strat around as part of the guitarsenal, if you will. Although I don't see it being the main Stratocaster, because let's face it, it's not the normal Stratocaster. This guitar has a very specific set of skills that, when called upon, it's the right tool for the right job. And hey, every carpenter needs the right tools, every guitar player needs the right tools. And with that, I hope you all enjoyed this look at the Noventa Stratocaster. If you did, please let me know by leaving a comment in the comments section below. But if you really enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up, share a link to it with a guitar playing friend of yours, and of course, the most important thing you can do, click the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and come back for more videos in the future. I couldn't do this without your support. Thank you so much for spending part of your day with me today, everybody. I hope you have a great rest of yours, and until next time, I'm Sean Pierce Johnson, wishing you all out there great tone, great health, and of course, happy stomping. Cheers, friends. I'll see you in the future. God bless.